Welcome to the Dark Arts Conversation. The more we talk, the more we heal. We're your host, Jeremiah,
Daniela,
aka the Baker.
the resident witch. Hi.
Kind of start off with a little check-in. So you're drinking disgusting coffee that you poured water into. How else are you doing?
Uh, Dude, I'm tired.
Yeah.
I did not want to sleep last night.
You didn't want to sleep, or O didn't want to sleep?
I was want to sleep. She was up every 2 hours, like wiggling awake, and everybody went out. So I was like, oh, God, I'm home alone. I'm not normally home alone. I don't like this. Still like being home alone. With the baby. It's a little scary. Especially ours.
Yeah. We'll get into that in a postpartum episode, or
Yeah.
shit I wish somebody would have told me before I had a kid, or I don't know,
That'll be
episode 2, any of those.
right.
All in the by the way. So at some point we'll get there. So tired, but how you been feeling lately?
Um,
Yeah.
Relatively okay. Like I've been making effort to get outside and like it's definitely keeping me going. But I notice like when I don't have sleep, I think that's when I'm the roughest, like mentally. Um, Trying to get enough sleep. Like the last few days she slept 7 hours. So for last night to be every 2 hours, it's like, damn, okay. Today's gonna be a rough day.
How does she sleep 7 hours when she's not here?
I don't know.
And then when I'm around, it's like 3.
I know, right?
Anyway.
Rough. I mean, she was sleeping in the middle of the bed, so.
Anything troubling you lately?
No. What about you? I mean, like, I'm okay.
I mean, I was feeling good up until like a couple of minutes ago. Like, you and I had talked about having some kind of a like intro weird thing to do, like a little skit thing, and all of a sudden, kind of actually really do feel imposter syndrome right now. Like, why the hell does anybody care what I have to say about this? And it's actually bothering me, like personally. Like, my hands are like cold, sweaty right now, which is annoying as hell. That's what I get when I get anxiety. So like, I don't like it. It's really kind of uncomfortable. Not actually intended. I really wish you'd get rid of it right now so we can actually move on to this. But I guess we can just lead into the fact that that means we're talking about imposter syndrome
Woo!
today.
Eric.
Shit. So, I don't really know how I feel currently. I don't feel great. I kind of feel like, shit, nobody cares what I have to say. But I kind of feel like
Wow.
Yeah, we're talking about imposter syndrome, which affects about 70% of people at some point in their life, which is way higher than I thought. I guess I thought it was going to be a much smaller population of people that would experience it. So it's kind of crazy to think that there's that large percentage of people that feel it. Whether they know what it is or not, they'll feel that feeling of, oh my God, am I a fraud? Is somebody going to find out that I actually don't know what the hell I'm talking about? So that kind of takes us into what imposter syndrome is.
I feel like it would be higher than 70%. There's got to be like everybody has at least experienced that feeling once. I feel like
there's like psychopaths and stuff that don't feel feelings. Like, no, dude, I'm awesome.
Okay, that percentage maybe.
And then there's those people with actual self-confidence. I don't really know what that's like, but maybe that's why I have.
This.
According to Dr. Valerie Young, a leading expert on the condition of imposter syndrome, it's the unconscious belief that deep down we're not as bright or capable as others seem to think we are, so we're left with this fear of being found out. So you kind of have to sit back and you're like, sooner or later, somebody's going to realize I'm not capable of doing this job, and I'm really just a fraud. And it's that whole crappy mantra of fake it till you make it, where you sit back and now you're like, at what point does everybody here realize I have no idea what I'm doing?
I think that's such a weird thing to do, in all honesty. While I understand the purpose of it, it also is like, that doesn't instill any confidence or any pep.
Fake it till you make it thing?
too. Because, dude, I remember saying that at the beginning of my like hairdressing years. Fake it till you make it. I'm like, you can't fake it if you fuck up somebody's hair. Um,
You, you could fake all you want, but it's like maybe
you
just
can't
like,
fake
yo, I don't really know what the hell I'm talking about. No, I'm not smart.
something if you're being too short.
It's
Just
true.
close your eyes and pretend it's not there.
So, yeah, yeah. Uh, just having that self-doubt where somebody is going to find out that you don't know what you're talking about. And maybe you do know what you're talking about, but it's just that doubt in yourself that somebody is going to eventually realize and then think that you're a fraud and call you on it. And so in the back of your mind, you're just, oh my God, oh my God, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And that's really what imposter syndrome is. So high 70% of people at some point will feel it, which means most of the people on this call have or will
Experienced at least a moment in time.
currently, by the way. I feel it still. I don't think it's going to go away today. So this was an interesting thing. Um, I didn't know that it's not technically considered a mental health condition.
That's kind of insane to me.
It's not in the DSM or the ICD, both of which are the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders and the International Classification of Diseases, which is kind of where they write all that stuff down. And the DSM is on version 5 in the last few years. They revamped the entire thing. I don't know if it was in there before, but it's not now. So people are like, it's not really a mental health condition. Um,
That's
now,
crazy to me.
what you read, there are people who say it should be.
I agree. It definitely should be. I'm surprised that it's not, though. I mean, especially if it leads to feelings of like anxiety and depression and like lack of self-confidence, self-doubt, and all that. Like those lead to bigger feelings at the end of the day. That does is classified subculture of mental health. I
Yeah,
don't.
are in there. So if something leads to it, and maybe those lead to maybe the depression and anxiety lead to the imposter syndrome feeling, why is it not considered?
I have no idea. Like that's kind of like what?
Yeah,
That's
like guys, maybe we're missing this one. I mean, I'm not a psychologist. I'm not, uh, you know, a therapist or anything either. So what do I know, right? Like, don't take my word for gospel, but I mean, come on, like if it's gonna lead people to feel a certain way, maybe just maybe we consider it the condition. Now, like I was saying, there are people out there in the fields who want it added. Is it going to happen since they just redid the DSM recently? I highly doubt it. But I thought that was really interesting that they don't care. Well, not that they don't care. Sorry, that they don't consider it to be a mental health
love Galley.
condition. So, what are some characteristics? What are things that are common signs of imposter syndrome?
So realistically, it's assessing your competence and skill. Uh, and then also like attributing your success to external factors like, oh, I was just lucky and it happened. Oh, I got by and it was there and it went my way. Berating your performance. That is me to a T after most things. I will beat the shit down and like, oh no, it's great. Uh, and then the fear that you won't live up to your expectations.
That's me.
Like,
I kind of feel like I grew up like that. So now
why?
it's like,
Is there anything in your life that you remember that really triggered that feeling for you and that's stuck with you all your life?
like constantly. Um, my dad has extremely high expectations. He's been a very high achiever personally. He's put himself through a lot of stuff by himself with no help from anybody else. And I mean, 2 bachelors, a master's, and a PhD with no help from his parents. So that's pretty big set of shoes to fill. Like, I didn't have the option of going to college. You're going to college. Cool. How the hell am I going to get into college? And then other times where I was told, like, you can't do that. You can't make money at that. Like, what are you doing? Like all these other things. We were like trying to live up to expectations. And then, I don't know that I should say this is going to eventually be public, but like recently I was told at work, like, hey, I have this goal for you, and my expectations are insanely high, and you're probably not going
That's
to meet
pretty up.
them. Okay. Um,
You're setting somebody up for
I'll
failure.
figure out how to meet that then. I'll just mark that off the list of things to worry about. But to be completely honest, hearing that ahead of time, I'm now prepared to not meet them, so I don't care. In all honesty, for me right now, it's kind of like removing that concern. So if I can't meet your expectations, if you're already aware of it, and you're setting a goal for me, that's fine. Now I don't have that pressure, right? If I can't meet your expectations because you've already told me that before I started, fine. Then I can do whatever I want. I don't have to feel that concern about whether or not my work is going to be good because I already know it won't be. So for me, that's an expectation setting thing that actually um, is something I'm working on, is resetting my own expectations in situations. But I can set my expectation perfectly in this scenario. It's not going to work. Cool, dude. I will do whatever I feel is good enough. Cool story, because whatever it isn't going to be enough. So that's cool. Actually, initially I was like, that's kind of nuts, dude. Like, why would you say that? And now it's like, all right, okay, cool. I'll just reset my own expectation of not being able to do this. And then I don't have to worry about it. So personally, I think I'm not going to have to worry about the imposter syndrome in this scenario.
Derek made a pretty good comment. Being a magician is basically having imposter syndrome for a living.
Yeah, I was going to say,
Do that.
great comment. And I want to bring people in at the end. If you're willing to talk with us live, that'd be awesome to kind of share your stories. So we'll get there because that would be cool. I'd like to hear
That
what
actually,
other
I
people
never
feel.
thought about it that way. I think that would be a really interesting tidbit to hear about. So, do you know the 5 types of imposter syndrome?
I did the research for the episode, so I'm not going to be like, no, I don't. Yeah, I do, but I didn't know that there were 5 types. When I started out with imposter syndrome, I just assumed the same thing, right?
Me too.
Everybody feels it. You're like, okay, cool, whatever, right? Like, oh God, somebody's going to think I suck at X, Y, and Z. I had no idea that they classified it into 5 different types of imposter syndrome. Um, and we're about to go over them, but there's definitely 2 that I know 100% resonate with me, and some that I feel like I've overcome,
Okay.
which is kind of nuts.
I think that's a pretty big deal when you can recognize that you've gotten past that. After reading the information, I was like, oh shit, I still fall in categories like hardcore.
So the first one is the expert, and you don't feel satisfied until you feel you know every single thing there is to know about whatever the subject is. That's you?
That's one of mine, yeah.
Uh, okay. That's not me. I'm kind of too lazy for that these days, in all honesty, anymore. I'm like,
I like want to know everything before like it's a lot of what stops me from doing a lot of things because I like be aware of like everything and anything before it's possible. Even like stuff that goes into like liability things. I'm like, oh, what if they get sick? Okay, I have to figure out all this and make sure that I have like this in warning and all that stuff. Like I stress over that like hardcore, and it honestly makes me not do any or finish out any projects.
um, you know how they always say, like, smartest person in the room? That's never going to be me, and I don't ever want it to be me. I've always relied on other people to be the smartest person. I'm kind of like, I don't want to say I hid behind them, but I learned a lot from them by not having to be the expert in stuff. So for me, it's that's not the thing that I get. Um, the other one would be the perfectionist, which is somebody who obviously focuses on having every single thing perfect. They may spend so much time on it that they can't really do anything else, focus on anything else. It can damage their relationships. Um, and then when they're done with it, they're like, it's still not good. And so then they're worried that somebody's going to think that they didn't do a good enough job when the only one that's probably doing that in that scenario is them. That used to be me. I used to be like, it's not right. I can't. Like, this sucks. Like, I don't like what I've written. I don't like the presentation. Like, but I've,
You have moments.
hmm?
You have moments.
Yeah, I know I have moments, but it's not me like as a core anymore. I used to be way worse, way worse. Like when I was young, I was real bad at it because it was never enough, right? And so it's like, man, like can't make anybody happy. I need to make this better somehow. How do I make this better to please people? Um, but then I kind of gave it a fu attitude. And I was like, whatever, who cares? Um, Natural geniuses, and I can relate, and I know you can relate because we've already talked about it. These are the people who pick up skills quickly and easily, so that when they can't pick it up, then they're super frustrated and they're like, oh no, I'm not good at this, and people are going to know. And I definitely had this for a long time. Um, I probably still do. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah. Like, normally I can pick things up pretty good, and when I can't, I'm like, I'm not going to do this. How about so
Yeah.
how does it impact you? Because I know you have that.
I mean, I can relate a lot in like my hairdresser field, like hardcore. I remember getting out onto the floor. I've been a hairdresser for 11 years. So at the beginning, it's like getting on the floor and you're like, are they going to ask who I am at this? Are they going to know? Oh God, they're going to know that I can't cut a layer or I can't do whatever they want me to do. Like, and I would feel so bad before I'd start work. So bad. Like, I mean, I remember being in tears half the time. I, even when I went to class for like cosmetology, I would always be so stressed out that I wasn't good or that I wasn't producing my skill fast enough. Um, Backstory, I stayed in cosmetology. I didn't go to college. My dad told me that I wasn't going to make any money and then you needed to have a college education to survive. And so that was my big, no, I'm going to do this and I'm going to be just fine. Um, so like obviously I pursued it and I'm still, yeah, but like there are days occasionally where somebody will ask me to do something and I'm like, and I'm straight up about it now. Now I'm like, I don't know how to do that. I can find you a stylist that is their preferred method. I'm going to do what I can do, but I'm going to walk you through the process of what I can't do. And if I can't do it, I'm just going to tell you that I can't. But in the beginning, man, like it, I was always stressed out because every person was new. It was a different, you're meeting somebody for the first time and you have to hit what they want on the mark within that 45 minutes to an hour appointment. Tell me how high stress level that is. Like, oh God, I've never done a perm and you want a perm? What? Okay, I've only done this in school. I hope this works out. Oh God, please don't fall out. Don't fall out. Yeah, dude.
I mean, hey, if it falls out, they can't come back.
That's so embarrassing though.
Of course it
Like
is.
that's they're gonna go to their friend's house and they're gonna ask and oh God, man, I used to sweat so bad.
Yeah, yeah. I can imagine. Yeah. So the last type, oh, I'm sorry, not the last type. So the next type would be the soloist. Yeah, this is definitely me. A rugged individualist who prefers to work alone, fearing that asking for help will reveal incompetence. Yeah, I'll just be over there doing my work by myself. I don't know what I'm doing. So as long as I don't ask anybody for help, then they won't know that I don't know what I'm doing. There's a select few people I go to help. And I'm like, hey, is this stupid? Because I know that they already know that I have no idea what I'm doing, so it's really like, all right, cool, whatever, who cares? And then we can work through it together. But otherwise, like, I don't ask.
I I don't blame you. I can totally understand that. I mean, asking for help is being vulnerable in its own way, and that is if you're not used to doing that growing up as an adult doing it, where you're like, oh, I'm an adult. I should be able to do this by myself, even if it's a brand new skill or work related. It sucks.
Yes.
It does, in all honesty, when you can't. And it's uncomfortable.
We're going to do a whole episode on vulnerability because I didn't learn really what it was or how to be vulnerable until like a few years ago.
And boundaries, dude. I feel like that one would be a good. Those two would go great together because
And you mentioned one, like the whole vengeance is a drive thing. Yeah, we're going to do an episode. And the stories there.
that's
I think everybody on this call probably does. I know a couple people on this call that would probably have good stories about like that whole "don't tell me no, I'll prove you wrong."
yeah. I'll keep going. I'll do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. The last one is the superhero who often excel due to extreme effort. Sometimes it's called workaholism, which can lead to burnout and give you physical uh, strain, which then impacts relationships. I worked for a person who was like this. I thought I was a workaholic, and they were constantly doing stuff. Um, they had to get it done. It had to get done. Failure was not an option. That's not me anymore, for sure. I've set better boundaries around that, but it's like you spend hours and hours and hours and hours and just get it done. But yeah, that seems crazy. But I know it's out there. I know it's out there a lot. There's definitely.
I mean, I can see that as something pretty easy to fall into. I feel like once I start a project, I can't stop. I get really frustrated when I have to stop. And
Yes, I know. You slept in this house for 2 weeks working on your
my final project for
final
school.
project for school. Yeah,
Yeah, dude,
I
that's
don't
fine.
think you left the house.
No, I did not. I only went home to see like my family occasionally, and that was about it.
Yeah, that was crazy.
So that you guys know, I did not go to college, but I went to makeup school and like did special effects and learned a lot of like CGI makeup eras and things like that. So there's that part of my career. So the causes of these five types, like perfectionism, um, as you guys know, it's somebody who prepares or spends way too much time on a necessary task. Um, gosh,
But they may procrastinate as well so that they don't have to face doing it.
yeah, I'm like, yeah, that sounds a lot like me still. Um, Also entering high pressure environment. So people who rather than feel motivated or hungry for a challenge suffer or feel inadequate or so anxious. Um, so like going for a job interview or getting a position, like that stress level will also imposter syndrome. I admire the people who can like live on that stress and like feed for it and like run with it and it doesn't stop them. I'm like, oh my God, I'm just gonna hide in the bathroom. I got sick. I can't go to the interview. Um,
It definitely has kept me from searching for a job for a really long time.
it's
I definitely stayed in a job probably 8 months longer than I should have just because I was too scared to go out and do it. I was like, no one's going to want to hire me. I don't have the skill set necessary to get a job. And then literally the phone call was supposed to be an hour. It was 2 hours. The in-person interview after that was supposed to be 2 hours, and it was 4 hours, and I got hired. I
those
mean,
are
I didn't even have, I
that
never even talked to another company after that.
that's
And so I was like, so maybe I kind of know what I'm doing. But then definitely, obviously, day one, it's like, sooner or later, they're going to realize I'm just stupid. Should not have hired me in this position. But I'm still there. So
well, obviously know what you're doing if they're keeping you around and they're still saying you're doing good work. The few other causes are family environment. So when you grow up with a sibling who's gifted, um, you may internalize feelings are inadequate that are not just justified. I feel that hardcore. My sister and I, her and I would call it sister envy, but like we constantly are one-upping each other and fighting for that, but also feeling the imposter syndrome of, I'm just not good enough for what you're doing. It's really bad. We're like 6 years apart and we still do it. And I'm like, oh, it makes it hard for us to be around each other or have a real relationship. On top of that, being a minority, um, I definitely feel that too, especially like I remember going to certain jobs or a few jobs and feeling super discriminated against just from the way that I looked, and that sucked. And that definitely encouraged a lot of, I can't do this. I don't know what I'm doing because of this. That doesn't get talked about a lot, and I wish it did more. Um, it's um,
That's
I'll,
what we're doing right now is talking about it.
oh, yeah, I know.
But write it down. I mean, we could definitely do a whole episode on it.
Like,
Because, I mean, here's right. I'm a white male. I have I been discriminated against? Sure, occasionally, to the same degree as like anybody else. Probably not. Probably not. So I'd love to have a conversation with somebody and be like, hey, like, what's it like? I mean, you hear stories about like people being followed around like convenience stores and all that other stuff because they're afraid they're going to steal shit. Like, yeah, I don't have any. So we'll definitely cover that at
yeah,
some.
it's
Try try and help people on both sides of it, right? Stop using your unconscious bias to judge people before you even know them, and then hear how those unconscious biases are affecting the people that you're applying to, right? Because I've definitely been in scenarios of like, I'm going to cross the street and walk over there. Now I have trauma from the past about part of why that would be too as well, but I definitely have an unconscious bias that we can talk about at some point in the future that I'm fully aware of. And I've probably made some progress on it, but yeah, the media, society, and all that stuff make it difficult to not have symptoms, which is not fair.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I mean, coming from the other end of it, dude, being followed around in a store while you're shopping or because you're picking up clothes and you're pregnant and picking up clothes and you look like you're going to go to the bathroom and steal them. God, that happened at TJ Maxx not that long ago.
You definitely didn't tell me about that stuff.
Oh my God. Yeah. That was recent. Oh, I was so angry. Yeah, shit happens. So how do you reduce your imposter syndrome? Do you?
I no, no, I don't. I didn't really know anything. That's one of the things I wanted out of this episode. It's like, how can I reduce that feeling? What can I do to kind of help myself do that? Like, I kind of know there's this expectation thing. I don't know if that plays into it really, um, but I had no idea what you can do, right? And I was hoping that I'd get something out of this to be able to stop feeling like that sense of worthlessness, that sense of fear that somebody else is going to realize they're just not qualified, whether you are or not, right? Like, let's not lie to ourselves. Nobody is qualified on day zero. You're just not. At some point, you have to learn something.
Mhm.
Um, but as you progress through it and you start to continue to feel that, you don't feel your successes. Like how do you cope with that? And that was a big thing that I wanted. And one of those ways is to learn to enjoy um, your success, right? Step back and be like, okay, cool. I did this. This is something that I did, right? I had help from people or I did it by myself, but like take that time and be like, cool. So I'm capable of doing this, and use that to kind of build your own confidence to reduce the impact that imposter syndrome has, right? Okay, so if they come to me and they're like, well, you don't know what you're doing. Well, there was this time I did that thing over there that was really cool. Don't forget about that. And then you can kind of like start to feel like you know what you're doing, and you're less likely to feel like you're going to be found out as a fraud because you're less likely to feel like a fraud. Um, Ask yourself value-based questions. And I didn't really get this one until I read it, and I didn't even think that this would be something. Like, what do you bring to the table? Why you? Right? There's clearly a reason you're doing what you're doing. Either you're there because you have the aptitude to learn it, you've already learned it, and you have the skills, right? Who is coming to you because you have those skills, right? That's the thing that we always tend to forget. If we forget that we have that skill set and people have come and sought us out for it, if we can remind ourselves that we are that skilled person, even as we're growing through it, right? I passed this exam, cool. I'm at this level. I passed the next level exam, great. I'm better than I was. Remember, people are coming to you for your skill set. Own your skill set. Don't beat yourself up over the fact that maybe you're not expert level, but realize that if they didn't want you, they wouldn't have come and chosen you. So you're not that much of a fraud at that scenario. People are relying on you to do what you can do. You are the one that is telling yourself that you're not capable of it. So reminding yourself by asking yourself those questions of your own value, right? What do you bring to the table? What have you accomplished? And how can you really reset those internal expectations of yourself? Um, and this is the one that I seriously suck at, 100%. Um, Take feedback as constructive and not as criticism. And I'm not gonna lie, I still suck at that. People are like, well, what about this or that, or tweak this thing over there. What are you saying? It's not good. Hmm? Hmm? I think it's fine. Stop. And then it's like, no, no, like, okay, that's true. Maybe it doesn't flow. Maybe we can readjust, and maybe it's good. And like, don't take everything so personally and critically, and try and step back and realize that it's coming from this place of trying to make things better, because that's what we're all, most of the time, that's what we're all trying to do, is help each other make things better, right? Help each other grow, and execute things to the best of our abilities. But when you're internalizing it in a negative way, and
It's
that was something that I definitely had to learn, like, you're your own worst enemy at that point.
yeah.
I
Well,
was, by the way. This would go to the
uh,
outline.
uh-huh.
And then I read that and I was like, oh shit, right.
That is
We're just
me.
trying to make this better. So cool, good to go. I like it. And honestly, it flows way better than we did when I just threw a whole bunch of stuff on a sheet of paper. Um, and again, it's managing that negative thought pattern. Not everything is negative. And if you haven't heard that before, it is one of the hardest things to overcome personally, was taking all of those negative thoughts and realizing that there has to be a counter to that. Not everything is negative. There are positive aspects of stuff, but you are in control of that. You have to be the one to reframe it and see it differently. If you can start to do that, you can start to break that cycle of, okay, people are going to come in, they're going to think I suck, they're going to think I'm a fraud, and then I'm going to sit here and worry about it and feel judged and terrified of that. And it may never happen, but we
Yeah.
don't allow ourselves to see that as a possibility. And so we sit there and beat ourselves up and it's bad. So reframing things in a way that like you can see positive outcomes, a big one.
I have to constantly like remind myself at the beginning of like when I'm reading tarot. Uh, Especially like with my gifts, I'm like, oh God, they're all gonna think I'm crazy and I'm terrible at this, and like I compare myself so badly. So I don't do it like X, Y, and Z, and they're coming to me now. Oh, the stress of it, like, oh, dude,
Oh yeah, I was going to ask you about that one earlier, and
like,
but we'll get to. Well, I'll actually ask you about that after this because I'm curious. Is that how you handle it when you do tarot? But
I mean,
hang on, we'll get there, and then we'll open it up to everybody. You have to realize perfection is not possible. It's not a thing. It's not a thing. Nah.
I know it.
80% people just hit 80%. You're good to go. You can do 20% later. If you get to 80%, call it done. Congratulate yourself for getting to 80% and realizing that other 20% will come at some point and you can go back and you can tweak it whenever you want. You're
Yeah,
never going to hit 100% every single time. Not possible. You just beat yourself up and work yourself to death. And that's not a
so
thing.
I'm like, I want it perfect. I need everything in alignment. It needs to be so great. Yeah, no.
I,
I've learned that one, especially like having our kid. It's like, all right, it's just gotta be okay with the way it is. It's fine. Keep going, keep moving. It's gotta go. It's fine. It's good. Because man, before that, I'd comb through every fucking detail to the point of no return. Even on projects and stuff and like sculpting, holy crap. I've had to like really refine that. Doesn't help that I have OCD, and that is just one of the many things I had to learn to let go for sure.
so we kind of talked about all the causes and like everything. And it can lead to anxiety, depression, lack of motivation, self-doubt, confidence issues. When should you go and talk to somebody about it?
I feel like if you are starting to get like it's starting to take on like physically, like you're getting really bad panic attacks, you're self-medicating in a way that is not helpful or conducive to you. Um, I think that those I'm gonna I definitely was a self-medicator. I was really, as you guys probably don't maybe know, I'm 8 years sober. I had a really bad drug problem. And
By the way, that's 8 years sober very recently.
yeah, like as of last week, earlier this week. And um, that was my big thing was self-medicating with hard drugs. And I remember even calling Derek might remember this story when I dropped some serious acid and didn't know it was laced with something. And I, of course, was like trying to kill a lot of feelings that I was feeling at the time. And I had called Derek to come pick me up. And oh, it was bad. I had a lecture of my life, but that was a big turning point for me because I could feel all parts of it kind of deteriorating. So I encourage you. I know you know which story this is. If you're starting to you're treating yourself with drugs, alcohol, you're having bad panic attacks, you're starting to get a little suicidal, then I would definitely start like finding help. Go to a therapist, go to a counselor, go to meetings, anything. Like at that point, like even going to somebody that you might find accountable that you can talk to about any of this and they can kind of guide you what your next step should be, definitely do it. Like your life you were so worth being here, and this is not a way to go either, in all honesty, like getting so stressed out that you start getting really suicidal. Um yes. um do we have a hotline or suicide helpline that we can actually put in the show?
Yeah, the National Suicide Hotline is somebody you should always talk to if
Yes.
you are that uh, if you're considering self harm. Go there first immediately. Don't call 911. Go there. They are more equipped and better equipped to help you out. So that's 1-800-237-8255. In some parts of the country already, you can dial 988. They have created a 3-digit code to call, like 911, that will take you to the suicide hotline.
That's actually really awesome.
By July 16th of this year, it will be national. So it doesn't work in 100% of locations right now. But again, not everybody wants to talk. So you can text as well. There's a texting option. If you text, what is it? You text hello to 741-741. That will put you in touch with the National Suicide Hotline as well, because sometimes it's just not getting words out can be some of the hardest things you do.
Yeah.
Um, that's kind of the other reason we're doing this whole live podcast video thing is to start those conversations. So make sure you're getting help. Therapist, counselor, a friend. You can always just start with that friend. Hey, kind of feel like people are think I'm going to be a fraud. Most people will say don't go to your boss. That just depends on the quality of boss you have. If they're open enough and you feel close enough to them, go to them, be like, look, I'm struggling. I think X, Y, and Z. Hopefully they can work through it with you. If you're not comfortable doing it, don't do it. Go to somebody that you're comfortable talking to. Hey, I'm really concerned. I feel like a fraud all the time. What do I do? Again, remember, negative thought patterns, perfection's not possible. Work through some of those things. It's not easy. It will not happen overnight, but you are not alone. You're not the only person that has felt this way or feels this way. It will not change immediately. Baby steps, measure your progress, and don't be the perfectionist setting goals that are unattainable.
Yeah.
Set those little goals of like, okay, stop, take a step back. Right, I can do this. I've done this thing over here that one time and I had success. I passed this exam that one time. I read this book that time. I have a basic form of knowledge, and it doesn't matter what other people think. I know my own self-worth. That's the hardest part.
Yeah.
That's why we're starting these conversations. That's why we're here. So I kind of feel like you and I have talked pretty heavily about like when we feel this way and stuff. But I did want to ask you about the tarot.
Okay.
Because like obviously I'm semi around for some of those, and you and I talked a lot about it. It's been one of the things that I feel has held you back pretty heavily from really uh, going down that path. I know it's something you're good at. I know it's something you're good at. You taught me everything I know, and like, yeah, I know you're capable of it. I know you have the gift. So why do you constantly feel like such an imposter?
I think it's just like there is a mix. This is a mixed bag answer because like I feel like some people that come to me are questioning if I'm the real deal. So um a lot of the time prior to that, it's always that stress of, oh God, are they gonna like ask me some dumbass, not there's no dumb questions, but the way the way that it's asked sometimes, like it's it's almost like they're trying to get me to fuck up and mess up or say something that like, oh really, I'm reading off the sheet or something. Like there's just this weird pressure that I feel or put on myself a lot of the time, that I'm not going to be what they need. And that's fine, but it sucks. It's very uncomfortable. Um, so a lot of the time, there's a reason why I will initially when I read for people, I will pull cards prior to, like at the beginning of the call, and I'll tell them what I see right then and there before they even talk, so that there's no suggestion that, oh, I picked that up for saying, or no, I already heard that earlier. You already told me a bits and pieces, and it's already coming out in the cards. There's no possibility of that happening. It's legit me telling you, this is what I see, this is how I feel, this is whatever it is. And people are like, oh shit, yeah, that's what I was going to bring up for you. And that a lot of the time releases that imposter syndrome for me, that, okay, I'm not fake. I am doing what I'm doing. I did get it head on. I know what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing, what I'm sensing is right. But a lot of the time, I think it's just that initial anxiety of like, is this going to be what they need? Is this, are they just going to tell me, I wasn't right, or I was wrong, or whatever the case is? They're going to regret having a session with me. So a lot of the time, it's that initial read really, for me, it really kills that. It nips it in the butt of, okay, this is the real deal. This is not just a shit reading, and they're after me for my money. Because we get a lot of tarot readers get a lot of bad reps, and there's a lot of scammers out right now that are playing people and in the community, where people are like, oh, do you want a reading? I know exactly what you need, and are charging wildly insane prices and hooking people who are not really in the best places mentally and need that validation. And it's going around a lot where people are taking other people's accounts and like posing as that, and taking advantage of people who actually just really need the support and validation. So, yeah, I don't know if that answers any of your questions. I hope it does. I feel like I just went on a straight up tangent,
but that's cool. But who puts that pressure on you? Is it
I
you?
think a lot of it is
Society?
me. And social media is a dangerous place, in all honesty, on top of that too.
That is
Uh,
true.
Being a part of like the witch community, there's that constant comparison of, oh, I don't read like them, or I it's like them. I'm not as good as they are, so I must be a fraud. I can't do what they do. I feel like there's a lot of pressure from social media, in all honesty. I get like wrapped up in that a lot of the time. My boundary comes in where I will basically ghost Instagram for a while. Like right now, I'm not really on it much. A lot of people don't see me posting. The most I do is for like the dark arts of. But when I feel like I'm getting into a really bad swirl of like caught up in other people's feelings, I have to disconnect. That's how I deal with it. And then I go back to, okay, well, I had these great reviews. These people, wrote me reviews, said I did whatever I need to, so I know what I'm doing. I'm not a fraud. Don't fall into that category. It's okay. And I think a lot of it is just like that anxiety of meeting new people and like talking and not being afraid to share my gift as well. And that brings its own and scared nervousness.
Yeah, I can see that.
So yeah.
Does anyone want to join the conversation and share your stories of feeling like an imposter? Somebody had already mentioned it in terms of being a magician. If you'd like to jump in, feel free. If anyone else has anything that they want to share about it, let us know.
Yeah, we have
Jump in.
up here. If you want to share.
Now's the time to do it. I'm gonna give you guys a couple minutes to decide.
Right.
And if not, it's totally okay.
Yes, it is totally okay if you don't.
Sorry.
There will be other times and other episodes too.
Trying to be open, especially in a like brand new setting, is one of the hardest things ever. So.
Oh, dude, we feel it every time.
Yeah, felt it right before this.
Right? Oh, God.
We have somebody that wants to do it.
Woo! I can't see it, so it's. Hi.
So this is Derek and.
Sorry. I'm going. Sorry.
What's that?
We know them. So yeah, jump in. Tell us your story.
Well, it's like I had said in the comments earlier. I mean, I was a magician for 12 or 13 years, and that entire profession is built on imposter syndrome. It's a combination of all five of the things that you talked about, which is it's just so funny because each one I was like, oh yeah, that was me. Like that's exactly what you do because when you start, everybody tells you, oh, fake it till you make it, fake it till you make it. That's what everybody talks about. And you say yes to every job and you just, pretend like you know what you're doing. So you get into like this habit of pretending to be something you're not. And on top of that, you're also pretending to be able to do things you can't actually do in real life. So you just you sort of dive deeper and deeper into it without even realizing, how far you can actually travel and go down that spiral until you hit a point where you're like, you can't not look at yourself and be like, oh, this is not at all who I want to be. So it's just constantly living in that fear of like, oh, I'm going to get caught. Someone's going to know that I can't do these things or that I, this isn't perfect. And if it's not perfect, I'm going to get caught. And it just, every avenue that you can think of, you have to have backup plan for a backup plan for a backup plan. It was tiring. And the way that I escaped it was I took it to the extreme and I just completely shut it off. And I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. It doesn't make me happy. And that's an extreme for a lot of people. And a lot of people don't have that luxury. But I also threw myself into something that I had zero knowledge of, which forced me to not be an imposter because there was no way I could fake it at all because I'd either hurt myself or hurt somebody else or mess up, thousands of dollars worth of furniture. So I kind of took the extreme route and decided I'm not going to give myself that opportunity. But other people haven't been as fortunate as I have, so I can't, I can't speak for others. But for me, that was tough. That was a tough thing to walk away from and feel comfortable doing so.
Would you go back and do it again?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I would never not do it. It was 100% worth doing for me. Cause I wasn't living up to my own expectations because I was just comparing myself to everybody else that I had around me because that's what you do. And as soon as I walked away and did something else and realized that that wasn't what I wanted to do, it was like such a relief. It felt like this huge weight off my shoulders. Like I instantly started sleeping better and my anxiety was completely gone almost, like other than, little daily things that, anybody would get anxiety about. I mean, I didn't wake up with the feeling of like, oh my God, I got to get all this done. And, there's no way I'm going to be able to, meet my goal by, the next month or whatever it was. Like I didn't have those thoughts anymore. I was having like really bad night terrors and nightmares and things like that. Those were completely gone. I mean, it was just such a huge, I was in system shock for probably 3 or 4 months before it started to really sink in that like I was free of this burden. Mm-hmm. But that's what that's the job for a lot. It's a pretty tough thing to do. So I think for me, not only would I do it again, I would encourage others, as long as it's a good decision for you financially and it's a smart thing to do, quit. Leave it behind, find something else, like you'll figure it out. It was tough, but as long as you have a good support system, it becomes a lot easier.
I totally agree on that. Support is where it's at, man.
Someone in the chat just said they were proud of you, and I just want
to. Oh, thanks, Katie. I didn't even see those comments until I was in there. But yeah, it's awesome that you guys are having these conversations, especially coming from such, I think, polar opposite worlds.
Yeah.
I see Jeremiah as such a more technically minded brain, and Danny is more of a free spirit, but it also shows that imposter syndrome, it doesn't discriminate. It goes after everybody in every profession and every walk of life. And that's definitely, that's a tough thing to have to deal with. But as soon as you start to be more real with yourself and you find good support systems, that's where it's really it's gonna come out. I've been in therapy for probably 10, probably over a decade now with the same therapist. I was very lucky to find the right one on the first try. But I also agree with what the both of you said. If it's starting to daunt on you physically, where you're losing appetite, you're not sleeping well, you feel sick all the time, you have major migraines, I would encourage you to start doing some research. And it is really hard to be vulnerable with people.
Yeah.
Vulnerability is especially with some stranger who's trying to tell you like, well, do this and this and this, and you're like, there's a lot of, I don't want to say shame, but there's definitely a lot of like kind of shame and stigma around going to therapy. I'm glad you said something about going to therapy. A decade that's a long time. That's great. I'm on, I'll say round 3 out of the last couple of years. I'm back in therapy now currently, trying to deal with some stuff as well. And I can't say enough about it. I can't say enough about my therapist, really.
Yeah.
She helped me become vulnerable. She's helped me understand what I can do to build my own confidence. Honestly, without it, we wouldn't have this conversation right now because I'd be way too nervous to do it. And I'm already nervous.
Oh, yeah.
I walked into this conversation and all of a sudden I'm like, shit, I feel like an imposter. No one's going to want to listen to this. But I think the more we talk, the more we heal. That's what we said, right? So the more
Absolutely.
we all come together and really realize that we're not alone in this. We're all experiencing somewhat the same things, and sometimes we're not, but we can relate to somebody else. I think that's going to help everybody.
Oh, absolutely. And also, like, with what Danny said about social media being dangerous, it's also just so easy now. It's so much more accessible to compare yourself to others. Like, but what you have to realize is the people who you think have it all together are in a worse, if not just as worse of a situation as you might be in. Like, just because they might be able to afford nicer things, they've got struggles that are way beyond what any of us can imagine. So don't compare yourselves. I was notorious for that. It's just like, I don't have, I'm not doing, big shows like this, or I'm not in theaters with, tens of thousands of people. I must be doing something wrong. But I quickly realized, especially with like working with other performers, you quickly realize that it's not worth all that. Like, it's comparing yourself to that, you're never going to satisfy. And like in magic, and I think in other professions, but in magic, there's a saying that it's okay to think you're good, but you should never think you're good enough. And I think it's kind of a double-edged sword to have that mindset, because like, you should always be hungry and you should always want to learn and do more, but also be careful of that path you go down, because you'll find yourself lost if you're not careful. And that's exactly what happened to me. It was really hard to pull myself out of that trench because I was so far. So the only choice I had for myself was to jump to the most extreme version that I could and just completely drop it. And then I started to see that light at the end of that tunnel. And that was the biggest thing for me. When COVID hit, that was kind of the big choice, because I was like, well, life is never going to be the same. Performing in front of a live audience will never be the same again now that this is, and I was already struggling before COVID hit. And after that, I was like, you know what? This doesn't make me happy anymore. It's not worth it. I'm spending more money than I'm making, and I got to find something else. So definitely making a change in your environment can be a huge help in just for your mental health in general, and putting yourself in a better situation than you are, even though it might slow down your goals. It's okay for a goal to take a little bit longer than you may have originally thought. It's okay to have those conversations with people. And being vulnerable is really, really hard, especially now, because everybody feels like they have to have it all together. And if they don't, then they fail. But nobody has it together. Nobody does.
No one.
So true. So true.
I think Allie is trying to like pop her head in to the side here.
No, I'm not.
I think she wants to say something too. Oop.
I was just listening. But I guess I could say some things. Hello, Jeremiah. Hello, Danny. Nice to meet you guys. Hey, okay. Speaking with this, I've been popping in and out on. So if I repeat something or it's like something's weird, I've been vacuuming. Oh, adulting. But so I've also recently had a big change in my life. I've been a dancer for over like almost 25 years now. And that's basically all I knew like my whole life. And so, I never really thought of it this way, but like I was a dancer. That's what everyone knew me for. Like, oh, she dances. Like, she's just dance. Like, that's all she is. So, like, I went down that path and whatnot. But, like, I was also not allowed to go to school, like college for dance. Like, my parents said, like, if you're going to go to school, don't be a dance major. Which, in all honesty, dance shouldn't be a major anymore because it's I had better working jobs than my friends who were actually dance majors. Like I made it as a dance director they were working as waitresses and stuff. And like, that's a whole nother thing to talk about, and that's my opinion. So, it like came to a point where I was just like known for dance and everyone's like, oh, Allie does this, Allie does that. And like, I'm a people pleaser. I am 100% a people pleaser. My happiness comes from other people's happiness, which I am definitely working on that. That was one of my resolutions for this year. But then once COVID hit and stuff, the dance life kind of got a little hard. So I took a break from that and I was just at home being a dog mom for a new puppy. And then I became a nanny for a family and I was doing that and it was great. And I loved the praise and everything. And like, they would say like, oh, like this is better than a nanny or an au pair or anything. Like we have an Allie. So at that point, like, I can't go higher than that. Like they're saying like, I'm an Allie, like I'm Allie. So that pressure was a lot because it was, I had to really please people so that way I was an Allie, not just a nanny or a babysitter or anything like that. I had to be Allie. So it got super stressful and whatnot. And so um, I've always had a really difficult time too, like deciding what I wanted to pursue in school because I didn't want to go in undecided because that would cause me a lot of stress personally. Um, so now I am definitely stemming out from my creative brain side, right brained, and trying to figure that if my creativity is going down because I have a creative job, that was stressing me out. So now I've gone to my left brain side and I've always been super interested in like like dentistry and orthodontics and whatnot. So now I have I'm working at a new place. I'm working at an orthodontics practice. And I've only worked there for 3 days now, but I've never been happier because I'm learning something new. I'm allowing myself to show that I am more than just a creative person. Like I can do stuff that's practical and logical. And like I love it there. I feel comfortable. There's a new family. Another thing and it's the last thing, and then, if anybody else wants to chime in, whatever. Sorry, I talk a lot. Trying to work on that too. But so my biggest thing was like when you say like, what was the thing you guys were talking about? Something about like if someone asks you to do something, you figure out how to do it without asking questions. And that's I mean, I grew up on that, like just figure it out. And especially, I've been working since I've been 15 and I don't have education. Like I have my high school diploma, but I don't have that college degree to help me out. So I always am just a person that's like, I'll just figure it out. But what I'm realizing now, especially being in a whole new career, is that it's okay to ask for help. I went into my interview saying like, hey, I don't have any experience, but I am willing. Like, I promise you, I will be dedicated. And I don't use the word promise a lot, but I'm a dedicated person. And I'm telling them like, I'm going to ask questions because I don't want to try and mess this up. Like, I want to make sure that I'm doing it right. And I feel so good. I don't feel alone at work. And this is the first time ever I actually got into the car on Thursday night in tears of happiness because I finally found a fit. And I know my gut because I've been a lot of places in different places and I found a really good family and it's cool. Okay.
Well, I want to talk about that real fast because it sounds like you're doing everything you need to do to avoid the imposter syndrome.
To do what? Sorry.
to avoid it.
avoid the imposter syndrome. You're openly saying, "Hey, look, I'm brand new to this, but I'm willing to learn this stuff, and I will put myself out there and I will ask questions." You're not that soloist who's hiding away and being like, "Oh shit, like don't look at me over here, like you'll find out I don't know what I'm doing." You're like actively jumping in and taking that stance of, I may not know what I'm doing. You're
Yeah, I even, I'm
power away from imposter syndrome by just being like, fuck you, I don't
exactly.
teach me and I'll learn it.
Exactly. Even with patients there in person or on the phone, like if I try to gauge it as much as I can because everyone has a different personality and take on. But if I can kind of tell that they're easygoing and whatnot, I'll tell them straight up. I'm gonna be like, I don't usually try to say that, but I'm brand new. And so we are going to go on this journey together. I hope you have a little bit of patience. And everyone is always so nice and considerate. So like, I don't feel like it is wrong anymore to say like, I am new. This is going to take a second.
Yeah.
So, and they're more understanding. So, and that was another thing, was that they didn't expect me, like with having no experience. They really wanted to take it slow.
Mm-hmm.
But I am a quick adapter. I'm a quick learner because, again, I have to, just figure it out. So they see that I am willing to learn and put in the work. And they say too, if you're willing to put in the work and communicate as much as possible, you will be able to move up in this company. They make positions for everybody. Like you just make up a position for yourself. And as long as you're a good team leader and whatnot, they will work with you. So I'm very happy. Yes, 2022, we're getting somewhere. Kind of.
And I think that kind of going along with that, I think in general, it took me a long time to realize this, but I went into the same thing. Like when I found my job making furniture and working at a lumber mill, I had minimal experience. I like built sets in high school, and that was like I would cut a 2x4 and screw it to another 2x4. So it was very far from any kind of fine woodworking. But when I found the place that I'm working now, I asked my now boss, but I asked during my kind of interview, basically I was just asking if they were hiring. Russell, my boss, he asked me, he said, "Do you have any experience doing this?" And I was brutally honest. And I said, "No, I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing, but I really want to learn and I'm driven." And I think that it would really surprise people if you put yourself out there, even though it's terrifying, if you can find that courage in yourself to say, like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I really want to learn, you'd be shocked at how accepting employers or people or friends will actually be of that. Right. I think that we all kind of turn into our own harsh skeptic because we don't want people to look down on us, but you'd be shocked at how accepting people are to that message of I'm just hungry. I want to learn this. And the only way I'm going to learn it is by doing. And I think that we get inside our own heads so much that we're so terrified to ask for help or to say, I don't know, that you got to find that courage somewhere in your own head to say those words. And I'm telling you, you'll feel a physical weight lift off of you when it finally happens. And it happens at a different moment in everybody's life, but when it finally happens to you, it completely changes how you view the world. You see the world with through a whole different lens. It's crazy.
I become a better communicator for sure with strangers too.
So,
and even in our relationship, it makes it easier to talk about things when you can just say, "Honey, I don't know how to do this. This isn't something I know how to do."
Yeah.
Rather than having to feel like a superhero and just say yes to everything and then figure it out.
And it takes time. We've been together for 6 years.
Yeah, it takes a long time.
It's year number 6 that we're finally like, oh, we can just talk to each other like we're normal.
Yeah.
You have to you have to be in a safe place for it, right?
Yeah.
You have to be in an environment, whether it's work or relationship or whatever, where you know that your ability to go to that person isn't going to be judged harshly. And I think that's the hardest part is not either one, not knowing, right? How are they going to react? If I come to them and tell them,
Right.
no, what are they going to do? Are they going to freak out? Maybe you already know that their expectations are kind of out of line. And now you're like, well, I can't go to you because your expectations are way up here. So you're already going to say, well, you can't do this, which isn't fair. But then also like corporate America is always like, go, 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 achieve, achieve, achieve.
Right.
Like we all need to collectively understand that we got to help each other to do it. Right.
And everyone's achievements is in a different way.
Yeah.
Yes. I will have 100% say, I have nothing against college or degrees. Like I'm actually looking back to going to school so I can up my career. But I think that's one thing that, society's doing to us as well is that everyone is a label, like you're a degree. If you don't, and it's like almost now like bachelor degrees are looked down upon. Like you have to have a master's and like you're saying, America's just go, go, go. So it's like, pretty soon doctorates and PhDs are going to be like, okay, great. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's drilled into our head from a really early age that like you follow the path. You graduate high school, you go to college, you find something that society views as practical, and then you go on from there. You have kids, you start a family, you get married. Like you follow a formula, and and for some people that works, and that's good, and that's great. But for people like myself or like Allie or like you guys, that's not how life works. Like that's just not the path that you're meant to take. And I think
there's something wrong with you.
Yeah, you start to think that there's something wrong with you, and that's when you fall into imposter syndrome where you're pretending. And it's easy to pretend if you're just posting, photos or videos on social media. That's easy to pretend, but in real life situations, it's really going to take a toll on you. And that's when you just have to learn to walk away and change about yourself. And it's terrifying. It's the most terrifying thing you might ever do as far as an internal, awakening. It's shockingly terrifying, but man, when you make that leap, it completely blows your mind.
Your butt cheeks, they unclench.
Yeah. You finally you finally let it all loose. You unclench them cheeks and you're good to go.
Let's put that on a t-shirt.
Yeah, that's a t-shirt.
I love that.
Dark up on the back, your butt cheeks.
Yeah.
Oh, sweatpants.
Unclench those cheeks. That's the motto. But it's funny though because like, and I know Danny's guilty of this. Danny is the first to encourage other people to make big leaps, but she refuses to do it herself. She will not do it herself because her excuses are more valid than the person she's encouraging to not do something.
All that way though.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh yeah.
To go do the thing that you know damn well you wouldn't do.
Yeah, but
absolutely.
Conversations like this with you guys, I'm like, oh yeah, I can fucking do this.
Yeah.
Conversations like this make me like, I can fucking do this. I can be a hair reader. I can give up being a hairdresser. I got this. Like, I'm listening to you guys. I'm like, damn, this is great pep talk. I love it. It's so good.
Well, the other thing about like about stopping being a hairdresser is you're 99% of the way there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think it's because I know with magic, it's letting go. It's letting
like this is all.
You think that if you let it go, then you failed on that dream, or you're saying goodbye forever. Then that's not the case at all. At least that's not how it was for me. Like I still have all my props, and it's kind of how I viewed it was I was making it a hidden superpower. That was going to be my party trick, was that I could do amazing things that people couldn't figure out. And that sort of brought peace that like, oh, I don't have to say goodbye to this. I just have to not pursue it professionally and make it, I have to make it something that I love again, not something that is going to support me financially, because it's tough to make something you love into a career and to separate the two. Like it's why my brother never, worked on cars professionally, because he didn't want to become a mechanic because then he wouldn't like cars anymore. Like it happens to the best of us, and some people are successful at it. Some people do make a career out of what they love, but you kind of start to realize, like, maybe this isn't something I love. Maybe it was an idea that I had early on that I fell in love with, but maybe my ideas have changed and who I am has changed. So you're 99% of the way from not being a hairdresser anymore. You could just be whatever you want to be and walk away, or just be a mom, or start a different career path, or start a business like you guys are trying to do. Like, you're that close. You know, all that's stopping you from doing it is you. Same with Jeremiah.
It's the imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
It's exactly what it is.
And that's why we're starting it this way, really. I mean,
Yep.
Personally for me, that's why I'm starting it this way. Like I said,
It starts in small steps.
Like I said in the opening, I don't feel like anyone cares what I have to say. And this is proving me 100% wrong, which is making it easier to like really do these conversations, put the work into what we're doing, trying to show everybody that, you know, healing is possible, and so is growth at any age.
Absolutely. And it's the most important part of that is maybe you'll start to have days where you think, oh, like, who cares about what I have to say? Or I don't have anything that's any different from a professional, or I'm not a professional, so why should I talk about this? But one tiny thing that you say, or a relatable anecdote, or even just making light of something, that could completely change someone else's view of what they're going through. And that's hard. It's also amazing to watch that butterfly effect take place. Like, you have to stick with people who support you, but you also have to support yourself in the sense that, like, I'm going to be okay. And you know what? I can talk about this because I lived it. I lived this, and I know my experience. It might not be universal, but I can talk about this. I'm qualified to share my opinion on this, and I think that the more conversations that we have like this, whether it's just in our own homes or on Instagram Live or, you know, on a freaking TED Talk, the more that we talk about it, it's going to become more normalized, and it'll encourage people to drop those walls and become a little vulnerable and admit to themselves, like, okay, maybe this is worth pursuing. Maybe this thing that I've been dreading to start or to dip my toes in the water, maybe it's not so scary. Because I think that, unfortunately, we put big things on our to-do lists that will never get done because they're too big. Like, if you put on a to-do list, become a rock star, that's never going to happen.
Maybe in the shower.
Yeah, maybe in the shower. But if you make it a goal to write or to come up with 3 song ideas a day and just write them down, and that's all you have to do. That's your only goal for a week.
Or even just like for the day, and you can't even think of anything, and like you just need to see that goal. Like, just be like, all right, wash hands today, brush teeth, go to the bathroom. There you go. You accomplish those things.
Make it small tasks, make it more digestible, and you'll be way more happy with the result. You know, it's kind of funny. You hear the phrase in construction or in anything a lot, but measure twice, cut once. But it really is a good thing to live by. Like, it's okay to be a little cautious going into something new, but it's going into something new. That's the toughest part. Because once you're in, you're in. I listened to Will Smith. He made this speech about skydiving and how the absolute worst part is everything that happens before you jump. That's the absolute worst, because once you're in the air, you're in the air. There's no going back. You can't climb back on the plane. You're either going to pull your chute and land, or you're going to not pull your chute and not land so softly. And that's what it feels like. But once you're in the air and you realize that, like, I'm going to pull my chute and everything's going to be fine. Right. All those thoughts that you had in your head before, they kind of subside, and you realize, like, oh, this isn't that bad.
Right. If it's meant to be, it's meant to be.
Yeah. And it's not failure. There's no failure, only lessons. Like, that's all it is.
Yeah.
It's really hard to find, like, true failure in the world. Like, maybe internally, it's really hard to find actual failure. You're just learning lessons, which
Yeah.
you could be 90 years old and still learn those
Which
lessons.
this is actually something that, I told my employers, because I could tell, like, there might be some things that I was doing that, like, they wanted to be like, okay, like, you could do it this way, it'll be faster or whatever. But I told them straight up, I go, do not sugarcoat things. I am a person who believes in that you learn from your mistakes. I need you to tell me exactly what I'm doing wrong or what I need to do better, and it'll be in my brain, and I don't take it personally. Like, you need to tell people that. You need to tell them so you can communicate. And that way your leader feels more comfortable being a leader as well. It helps them out.
I really like that. But what you're doing right there is the other part about overcoming imposter syndrome, is not taking that criticism negatively, right? So
Right.
as a leader, right, you're freeing the leader to provide that constructive criticism back, knowing full well that the person's going to take it in a way that isn't going to be
Right.
damaging. But the person receiving it also has to be like, okay, look, there's nothing wrong with being told that what I'm doing isn't perfect. There's nothing wrong with it. That's how we learn.
Yeah.
I think that's a great valid point, because it is bidirectional. You're allowing the leader to understand that you can accept that in a way that's going to be helpful, because the leader needs to know that they can give you that without it being this thing that you're going to mull over and like feel bad about. So I think you're handling imposter syndrome far better than I am, clearly, based on all of this. So
I mean,
no, I don't think that's true.
I think you are doing.
No, I don't think that's true at all, because you've reached out to us multiple times for different things, and it might just be small questions, but you have to give yourself more credit.
You're literally doing this.
Yeah, you're
right
doing
now.
the thing. You're
You
doing the
both are
thing.
doing this.
Like
that's literally like.
Yeah, you're in the air.
Oh my God!
You're in the air. Like it's you're doing it. So it's.
Yeah. So even though you're giving the advice and stuff, like, obviously you're giving the advice for a reason, because again, like, something, like you said, you may not be a professional or anything, but you're comfortable enough to talk about this and be vulnerable with other people. And that in return makes like other people feel vulnerable enough. Vulnerable. Okay. I'm just going to stop.
Yeah. Vulnerable enough. Yeah. I think you guys doing a whole episode on vulnerability, I think, would be really beneficial to people like me and like Allie, I've been in that situation where it's like, I refuse to let anybody think that I'm not a superhero.
Also, if there's anybody else that's trying to join in, please just like cut us off at all, Just like,
yeah.
Does anybody else want to join the conversation? If not, that's totally fine.
Yeah.
Vulnerability is a hard.
No pressure.
Vulnerability is on our list of topics, by the way.
Yeah.
It's a big one. It's a big one.
Yeah.
And then we'll do after that. But we're probably not. Danny, I don't want to do it in the same episode. It's going to be, vulnerability is a huge thing.
Yeah, no, that's a separate conversation.
That's a series.
Yeah, that's a series of talks probably.
So
V is for blank. You.
Yeah.
Just go over the letters.
Go over each letter.
Yeah.
But I love that you guys are doing this, and I think you need to give yourself a lot more credit than maybe what you think is due. So take it from an outside source. This is going to help people do a lot of different things in the long run. They might look at a goal or something that they've been scared of doing. They might be looking at it differently because of one sentence or one topic that you bring up.
Yeah.
That's the hope. At the end of the day, that's the hope, right? It's the, and here's the thing, to anybody that doesn't want to join the conversation, there's nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely not.
No.
It's not for everybody.
If you want to talk about it, talk to somebody in a setting that you feel safe and comfortable in. Have that conversation. It will make a world of difference, and it will be the hardest thing you've done the first time. The second time will be easier, and it gets a little bit easier. And you're always welcome to join at any time. You can always hit us up afterwards. And again, to anybody that's missed the beginning of this, it's going to be a podcast episode once we wrap this whole thing up and everything. So have those conversations, even if it's not here, even if it's not with us. We just hope that you have them. That's it. We're trying to start the conversations that people don't have, that we don't feel people have. I can't say that they're not having them, but we're trying to put those conversations more out into the open, make them more acceptable, and open it up and be that vulnerable starting point for everybody else.
Yeah. Something that really helped me just to start like communicating better was even with Derek. Like, I mean, I was awful at it because I didn't want him to be upset or anything. So like it started off with like, I'm gonna not look you in the eyes, and I might face the other way, but I am going to express how I feel. And like that made it easier. So even if it's something like, if, you know, someone wants to come on and not even show their face, like just to talk, like it makes it so much easier. It's just like a step by step. Don't throw yourself into, you know, the fire, like, you know, get a little inch a little closer in, because it makes it a lot better. And, you know, I have fully accepted I'm just going to be me. And, you know, coming from job interviews too, I will say that, you know, if you go to a person, they will tell you the do's and don'ts. And I would probably be a person that they would exemplify as a don't. But, you know, in the same time, be professional. But at the same time, these are going to be the people that you're working with. Like, of course, like, you want to like show that you have knowledge of like the company or whatnot, and you want to impress, of course, but they have to accept you for you.
Yeah.
And I did that because I always made it so I could get the job. And then I find it, because I said, I was like, oh, I never fail an interview. And then this year I failed at an interview, and it pushed me back, because in that interview I was myself. And then that made me realize, well, I'm actually really glad that I didn't get that, because now I'm in a place where I'm with Allies all the time. It's amazing.
And you don't have to go into that job and live as an imposter. You get to be you. And that's the biggest thing.
And that's really big talk for people who haven't gone through that big change. But it is really worth it. Like, it's so worth it to wake up in the morning. Like, I wake up in the morning and I'm excited to get in my truck and go to work. I didn't feel that way for a long time. And the job that I had before this one, like my day job, I worked in a hotel, and I still love the people that I work with, and I miss them dearly. But they, thank God, that my manager, who was still one of my best friends even today, she fired me. And it was the best thing she could ever do for me as a friend, because she knew, because I was going to stay there whether I was miserable or not, because I had an obligation to take care of my animals, and I had to make money to do that. And she realized that no matter what I did or where she put me, I wasn't going to be happy. Mm-hmm. So she threw something at me that she knew I could handle, and she fired me. And it forced me to look at my career as a performer and say, maybe this just isn't what I want to do. Mm-hmm. And I looked at the job that I had working in hospitality, and I realized I don't want to do this either. And it made me it forced me to take a really long, hard look in the mirror and say, am I just pretending that I like these things because it's what I feel like I have to do? And then I found something that I really enjoyed, and that even though I struggled with a lot in the beginning, I was lucky enough to find a group of people that are willing to teach me and not make me feel bad about it. And if I do make mistakes, like I made major mistakes at my job, and it might be like all right, well, we got to fix it. So might as well just hop on fixing it than sit around complaining about it. Like, I learned to not internalize those big mistakes. And that was really hard, because I was like, oh my God, they're going to find out I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going to get fired. And this is going to be like the worst. And I love this job and I don't want to lose it. But you have to feel comfortable enough to say, I made this mistake. I apologize. But luckily, this group of people was like, it's okay. Like, mistakes happen and we can fix it.
Yes.
Because in what I do, there is no such thing as perfect. You can get close, but there's no such thing as perfect, especially in what I do.
Speaking of, not having experience in learning, I am going to go study now, make some flashcards and whatnot, because I feel pretty driven right now to do all that. So thank you for allowing me to speak. I feel super good now. And I hope that, I could at least make one impact on someone listening, whether it be me just being like this or, something inspirational I actually said. So thank you. I love you guys.
Thank you.
All right, peace out. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Yeah. But where does that leave you two? Like, where do you guys think? Do you guys think this is definitely headed in a direction that you find beneficial to yourselves?
I mean, in just this conversation, I'm like, oh, I'm just so inspired. And I'm like, I'm in a hot minute.
Yeah. I mean, not even that. Just watching the number of people that have joined this week versus last week is huge.
Knowing that we're like helping, or maybe even just people seeing it and, whatever that is for them, it does whatever it needs to do for them. I'm hoping that, I mean, I was actually really surprised. My mom asked me what I was doing today when I gave her the baby. And I told her we were doing a podcast. And last night we were going over the like information and stuff. And my mom in the other room came over and was like in shock and awe. Like she was like, I think what you guys are doing is going to be great. And I was kind of taken back because like my mom is very certain things. I love
your mom's particular. That's a word that I like to use. She's very particular.
Has a very particular thing, and for her to like willingly come over and be like kind of shocked and awe, so surprised about what we're talking about. She was like, this is gonna help people. And I was like, oh shit, okay. Like to be acknowledged by somebody who's also in the medical field as a nurse and takes care of elderly on a daily basis, and she's listening to us go over our notes, and she's like, oh my god, I feel these things, I've experienced these things, I've dealt with these things.
Absolutely, yeah.
Like, holy crap, okay, cool, we're doing something right, we're helping, even if it's in the little bit that people are hearing or seeing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I feel way better than I did, and I have in a long time, and this project is going into year 3 at this point, and it's so far beyond where it started that I'm blown away. I feel personally like I've grown a ton. I feel like less of an imposter in certain scenarios, and so being able to have these conversations is really making a difference to me, which isn't something that I think I thought was going to happen. And this is only the second conversation we've had. And so I think that's
Sure.
super big. And I just really want people to have the conversations. Like I said, like if you're not here, that's totally fine. Got a conversation somewhere else, great. If you miss them and catch them as podcasts or whatever, like I want people to know that they're not by themselves alone, and that they're not the only people who feel these things.
Yeah, and we all have days. Like I still have days where I do feel like I'm alone and that I'm, I don't have anybody that actually relates to my specific situation. And maybe that does ring true because nobody's situation is going to be exactly the same. But good Lord, I mean, if you just reach out to the people who are there and who want to support you, you'll start to realize that there are people in the world who've gone through similar things, who have made it through and have seen, who have tasted that grass on the other side, and it's okay to not always feel adequate,
Yeah.
but it's how you combat that and come out of the other side. That's the most important part. Like, it's okay. It's like, we say all the time, even just among the four of us, like it is okay to not be okay. And that's hard to admit, because you want to feel like, in your head, you're like, but I need to be okay all the time. I need to be okay for everybody else around me. And it's like, no, that's not on you. That's not your responsibility.
Yeah.
My mom went through that. She's been a caretaker. She went through every generation, my great grandmother, my great aunts, like all of our elders, she was with until they passed. And she said that
her into that conversation, by the way, because we're going to do the whole caretaker conversation.
Oh, I mean,
at some point, because
she's one of the most qualified people you could ever talk to on the subject, because that's what she did. But she realized that these women and some men, but mostly are female elders on her side of the family. She started to realize that, like, these women were in their 80s and 90s, and they still didn't have it all together. They were still trying to be something that they couldn't be. Like, whether it was old age that had finally caught up to them and they just couldn't do the same things that they did when they were, in their 40s or in their 20s or whatever, they still felt that. So to see that in someone who's at that age and at that point in their life, it kind of, in a very weird, twisted way, it kind of brings you peace in your own head. Like, oh, this doesn't go away. You just learn how to deal with it. That's all it is.
Hopefully you learn proper coping mechanisms.
Yeah.
You do. And hopefully this helps somebody with that, right? It's that reframing of how you're thinking things through.
And putting that train of thought into something productive is also, something that's really, really helpful. Like finding something that you don't intend to make a career out of or anything like that, just something that you can escape and do for fun, whether it's, video games or woodworking or rock climbing or whatever you want to do, being able to funnel that energy into something else and to feel vulnerable in that can also really help you combat it. Like, to be able to say, like, oh, I don't know everything there is to know about this hobby, but maybe if I reach out and I can take a baby step, I won't feel so inadequate, and maybe it'll, drive me to ask more questions and to ask for more help. And maybe eventually I'll want to go see a therapist, or I'll want to have a conversation, more open conversation with somebody. It's just those, you put little stepping stones for yourself. You'll get there eventually. Everybody does, I think.
Yeah.
All right.
Running really long. That's actually awesome.
Yeah.
We were kind of thinking this was only going to take like half an hour. So I'm super glad that you guys joined. I'm glad that everybody else joined. This is
Yeah. It's awesome to see so many people come like in and out.
Yeah, it's really awesome to know that everybody's kind of here and there.
So we're going to wrap this one up because it's actually way long, but that's great.
Yeah.
Because, look, that means we're having good conversation. So as much as I hate having to stop the conversation and slow it down a little bit, I appreciate everybody that showed up, everybody that spoke. Again, if you don't speak now, you can always speak in the future. You can email us and everything else. Please reach out, check in on people. It can make the world of difference.
Absolutely. And I'm going to say it for you because I know neither one of you will say it. If you are watching this right now, you should absolutely subscribe to all of these, to both of their accounts, because they're not going to plug their own stuff, and that's not okay because they should be plugging it.
I'm
Wrong.
going to do the same thing for you. I was going to say, if you guys want lovely furniture, please check out Derek.
Thank you.
So
Where-
Derek wrong. Please like, subscribe, follow, and share this stuff. We are going to be on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Stitcher.
Hey.
Please rate, leave a comment, anything, so that people can find us. We're not easy to find currently. It would be The Dark Arts of Conversation, the podcast name. You can check out the rest of our projects. This is only one of the projects that we do. You can find those at thedarkartsof.com. There's a bunch of other projects on there. You can reach us via email if you have any comments, you want to join a conversation, you want to offer feedback, you want to say hi, if you have a topic idea. You can email us at thebakerandthewitch@thedarkartsof.com. Remember, you're not alone, and the more we talk, the more we heal.
Also, real quick, before we go, thank you so much, Derek and Allie, for coming on.
Oh, yeah.
Freaking awesome. Where can people reach you to come get furniture / beautiful, beautiful tablets of wood?
So you can message me personally. I do take on like commission projects, just kind of off the wall. So if you have an idea of something that you want it in your house or a piece of furniture. I do work with metal and wood. I really don't. I try not to turn away projects that are interesting to me. You can message me personally, or you can look up my actual company that I work for, which is called Eco-Friendly Lumber. We are a local sawmill located in Northern Virginia. We do fresh sawmills of boards of any size, or we actually do milling of live edge slabs to make dining room tables, any kind of slab furniture that you can think of, desks, countertops. That's what we specialize in. That's the shop that I work in. So if you guys are in the need of a dining room table or a bar top or something new, please let me know. These guys have received a couple pieces from me already, and I think it really fits your vibe. But if you're looking for something a little different, feel free to let me know.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right.
So
We love you guys. We'll see you soon.
Really
Yes.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
And we'll be back in 2 weeks with whatever the next episode is. We
Yeah, once you figure that out.
Check the graph.
All right. See you guys.
You'll know when we figure out what the topic is. We'll post it up there.
Cool.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone.
I'm looking forward to it.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.
See ya.